In this video, I'm going to show you guys how to make the Android logo, and so we're going to get started on that. When you guys open up Schoology for this assignment, you'll see this slideshow right here that has the Android logo that we're going to be making, and then we're going to turn that Android logo into something else of your choosing. Okay, so we're actually going to make two copies of it, so you can show me the Android logo that you made and then the one what you turned it into. So here we go, let's get started. First thing that we're going to do is we are going to create a new artboard. So we're going to come up here to the File tab and click New. We are going to name this one our first name, underscore our last name, underscore Android logo. Okay. Again, we're going to make sure our profile is set to basic RGB. Okay, so you're going to click that and change it. And then we're going to change our number of artboards to 2 for this one. Okay, if your settings aren't still the same, then you're just going to change them along with me as I do it. For units, make sure it's set to inches. And this time for our width and height, we're going to do a 5 by 5 inch. Okay. Double check down here under Advanced that your color mode does say RGB before you go ahead and create your document. For you guys, it probably will say OK here instead of Create Document. So click that button. You should see 2 artboards on your screen, just like this. And we're going to go ahead and get started on the left side right here, creating our Android logo. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to change the color that we're going to be drawing in to be the same color as the Android logo. So to do that, we want to get to the color picker window on our fill. So if we hover over our icon right here on the left for our fill tool and we double click it, it will pull up this box right here that says color picker. And we want to change right down here what the color code is for the Android logo. And this is on the slideshow, so you can copy and paste it in here or you can type it in here. But the color code for the Android logo is A4C439. Okay, so we're going to put that in there, and we should notice that if we click somewhere else that it changes to this color of green, which is the color we're looking for. And then we're going to go ahead and click OK. So that now we have that color set over here for our Android. We are also going to click right here on our stroke outlines to select it and choose none. So it's set to none. And then we do have to click back on our green color to put it back on top to show that that is the one that we are using as we are drawing. Okay. So after we do that, we need to remember to do what we always do after we make a new file and save our file. So come on up to the File tab and click Save As. Make sure that you click on your ID number over here on the left hand side of the screen and then double click our FabLab folder, and we're going to save our file right here in our FabLab folder. So just click the Save button, click OK on the pop-up. We're not going to make any changes there, and then we're ready to move on. So the first thing we want to do is we want to create a circle for the head of our Android, and so we're going to do the circle tool for that, or the ellipse tool. So we're going to hold down our left mouse button over here on our rectangle tool so we get our flyout menu, and we're going to choose the ellipse tool. You can also get to this by just pressing the letter L on the keyboard. Okay, we're then going to click one time on our artboard so our little pop-up comes up to ask us what size we want it to be, and we want the size for both the width and the height to be 2.7 inches. So we're just going to type in 2.7 in both of those boxes and click OK. And it's going to make us a perfect circle. That's 2.7 inches. It doesn't matter where our circle is right now on the artboard because we will end up moving it later anyway. Okay, so just make sure that it's over here somewhere on this artboard. The next step, if you recall when looking at the Android, its head is not a circle, it is a semicircle. So we're going to need to cut this shape in half. Okay, so we're going to come over here and we are going to select, make sure our circle is selected so that we can see our blue bounding box around it. And if yours isn't selected, then just go to your black arrow up here, the selection tool, and click it to select it. And then we're going to need the knife tool, which is hiding under the eraser tool. So over here on your toolbar on the left, if we left click and hold down the mouse button, for you guys the knife tool will be hiding underneath there. For me, because it is not there anymore on the newest version of Adobe Illustrator on CC, then I have to go tell it to find that tool for me. So I'm going to come over here to edit my toolbar real quick and find where they have moved the knife tool to. So give me just a second. Here it is. And I'm going to select that knife tool. Okay, once you have your knife tool selected, then you're going to hold down the Alt key so that you can draw a straight line right through the center of our circle. And you can tell where the center is because you'll see 3 blue squares, one on each edge of the circle and one in the center of the circle. Okay, so I'm going to hold down my Alt key and I'm going to click outside the circle, and I want to make sure I finish outside the circle so that I know the line went all the way through to cut it. So here we go. We're going to click, drag an arrow, or a line, not an arrow, all the way through as straight as possible, and then we're going to let go of both the Alt key and the left mouse button, so that now we should have something that looks like a circle with a line straight through the middle of it. And then we're going to come up here to our direct selection tool. So that is the white arrow. We're going to click it, and we're going to click anywhere to deselect our circle, and then only click the bottom half of it and hit the delete key on the keyboard, and that should get rid of that half so that all we have left is the top half that we're going to use for our android's head. That's going to take us to our next step. Alright, the next step we want to do is add some antennas to our android, and so we're going to do that with our pen tool, which we can get to by hovering over it over here and clicking it, or hitting the letter P on our keyboard to select that pen tool. Okay, once I do that, I want to change my stroke color to the same color as our fill color for the android's antenna. So I'm going to come over here, either over here on the left or over here under appearance on the right, and I'm going to click to change this color by double clicking it and getting that color picker tool up again. Apparently I can't say that word. And we're going to type in that same color code, so A4C439. You can copy and paste it again, or you can just type it in. And we're going to click OK. And now we should have our stroke line as that same color of green. So I'm just going to click anywhere on my artboard to start drawing. So I click once to start and once to stop. Okay, and I'm going to drag down. I would just want a straight line. To make it a perfectly straight line, I can hold down the Shift key, okay, and click, and then hit Escape to make it stop drawing the line. I want this line to be about 6 points, so I'm going to just hit my up arrow here until I have a 6-point stroke line. Okay, but I also want to, I can't tell right now how long this line is by looking right here, so we can change that in a second. So if I'm not sure if I made it 0.6 inches long or not, then I'll show you in a second how to look and fix it if it's not, because we just want it close to there. We're just making antennas, so it doesn't matter if it's a little shorter or a little longer. But what I do want to do is I want to put a curved top on top of the antenna, because his antennas, if you look at him really close, have a curved top. It is not a straight flat edge like this is. So on my appearance panel, if I click the 3 little ellipses or these 3 little dots right here, it's going to give me more options right here. Okay, and that's what I want to see, is these other options, so that I can change the top of that to have a curved edge instead of a straight edge. Alright, so once we get our appearance panel open, we're going to actually click the word stroke right here, and when we do that, it's going to give us some more options right here. And we want to change the cap from flat or straight to a round cap. So we're just going to click this second icon right here to round off the edges of it. So that way when we put it on as his antenna, it's going to look more like an antenna that's on the Android itself. Once we've done that, we can actually close back out of that appearance panel. We don't need that option anymore. So we're going to move out of it, and then we are going to come up here and go to Object and click Expand and click OK. So that way it changes this into a vector shape like we did with our text on our text trick videos, instead of it being just a straight line. We want to rotate the antenna so that it won't be standing straight up, it'll be sticking out at about a 30-degree angle. So we're going to click on it, and then we are going to come up here to the top of the screen and go to Object, Transform, and Rotate. So this box right here pops up. We can click the preview box to preview what we're doing, and we're going to change this to be about a 30-degree angle. Okay, and we can preview to see that it did that. And then we can click the OK button. So now we have this one right here facing the right direction. The next thing we want to do is we want to use the Reflect tool to make an exact copy of it to put on the other side of the Android. So we're going to come back up here to Object, go back to Transform, and this time choose the Reflect tool. Okay, again check your preview box so you can see what it's doing, and this time we want to make a copy of it, okay, so that we still have our original one but we have an exact duplicate of it leaning the opposite direction. So we want to do a reflection vertically, so make sure your axis is changed to vertical. And then we're going to click copy this time, so it makes a copy of it. So now we have our two different antennas here, and we want to group these together after we get them into the position we want them on the head. So make sure to space them apart to where they look about like they do on the Android's head, okay, which usually come out around here and here. So you can move them up to kind of get an idea of the placement that you want them to be in, and you can actually wait till you have them about where you want them. They don't have to be exact, just something similar to what you're going for. And so about half of the antenna is going to be above the head and half of it's going to be inside the head. So if you see these two little white, they look like diamonds, they're squares, but they look like little diamonds. You want them to be touching the edge of your circle, okay? So that way you know that they're both in about the same placement on the head, okay? And then we're going to click one, and we're going to hold down the Shift key on the keyboard to select the other one, because that's going to put them both together. And then we're going to hit Control G to group them together, so that way if we move them now, they're going to move as one instead of separate pieces. Okay, and then we want to go ahead and unite them. So to do that, we are going to go up here to our Window tab and come to our Pathfinder tool. And on our Pathfinder tool, we're going to hold down the Shift key and select the head as well. So we have all of these shapes selected. The Unite button is the very first shape mode button. We're going to go ahead and click it. And when we do that, we can now see that this is all one shape now. It moves together as one shape. We have our antennas and we have our head. If you wanted your antennas to stick up further than that, that again is a personal preference or design preference. You can choose to do that. Okay, and go ahead and close out of that. All right, the next thing I need to do is I need to draw the circles for the eyes. So I'm going to go back over here and click on my fill color, and I'm going to change it to white, which is up here at the very top left. So you can type in the letter F 6 times over here, or you can drag it as far up to the top left corner as possible and click OK. We are going to go back to our ellipse tool and click on it. And then we're going to click one time on our artboard. And this time we're going to make the eyes about 1/4 of an inch. So we're going to type in 0.25 to both the width and the height and say OK. It's going to put our first eye there. We're going to go to the selection tool and we're going to make an exact duplicate of it. So to do that, if we hold down the Alt key on the keyboard, click and drag to the right, it will make an exact duplicate of it. I'm going to turn on my guidelines real quick so that I can see what I'm doing. Yours should be on by default, my smart guides, but I'm going to check mine off now to make sure. And then if I hold down the Alt and drag, see how it's making this line right here, so I can tell that they are exactly straight across from each other and not offset, because I want his eyes to be exactly in the same place. So I'm going to place the eyes where I would like them to be, and you can always open up a picture of the Android if you want to try to get yours to look pretty close to the original. I can tell you in the original his eyes are close to where his antennas are, like the center of his eye. So I'm just dragging mine over until I see that it's about the center of his antenna. Once I have those there, I need to also make sure those are grouped in with the head. Okay, so I'm going to select both of the circles and group them together, and then I can align them with the head. So I'm going to click the first one to select it, hold down the Shift key, click the second one, hit Control G, and then I can center align them to the head by clicking on, when I open up the Pathfinder window, it has Transform Align in Pathfinder. If I click on Align, I can shift click his head, and I can come right here and tell this to align to selection. So that way when I center it, it'll center his head and his eyes together there. I'm going to hit Control S and save because we haven't saved in a while, and it's always a good idea to save often. So I'm going to do that real quick. Now our Android needs a rounded rectangle body, so we are going to come over here again to our shape tools. For you guys, your second option down will be the rounded rectangle that you can choose to use, which is what I advise to use. For me, it's not one of those options again over here by default on this version of Adobe Illustrator, on the new CC version. So I need to find my rounded rectangle tool right here and select it. Okay, so now that I have it, I'm just going to click anywhere to draw my rounded rectangle. I'm lining up to my guidelines are showing the top corner of that I'm at the corner of my Android's head. So I'm going to click and hold down the mouse button and drag over till I see it's aligned over here as well. So I'm just looking for those guidelines. And then I'm dragging down. If you notice the little gray box at the bottom right, it's showing you your height. I'm dragging the rectangle down till it's about at 2.6 inches. So I'm just going to keep dragging down until it's around 2.6. It doesn't have to be exact, but close to 2.6. And then I'm going to let go. I will need to change my color back because right now my fill color is white because that's what I used last on the eyes. So I'm going to double click my fill color over here and type back in that color code for our green Android color, which again was A4C439, and click OK so that it fills that in that same color of green. And then what I want to do is if you look at the Android, the top of his body is flat across, is straight, but the bottom has the rounded corners on it. Okay, so I want to make sure I have that same look here. So I'm going to use the eraser tool to get rid of this top portion up here. Okay, so the eraser tool is going to be over here where we used our knife tool. If I left click and hold down, I can choose my eraser tool, and basically I'm going to erase all of this right up here across the top. Okay, So if I hold down the Alt key, I want to do it right where the curve starts right here is what I want to erase. Okay, so I'm going to hold down the Alt key so I can have a straight line when I'm erasing. And I'm just going to drag straight through, okay, and then drag up. So see, it draws like this imaginary white rectangle around that shape. And then I'm going to let go of both my Alt key and my left mouse button. And it's going to erase all of that above to now give me a straight edge there. So now I have my straight edge on top and my rounded edge on bottom so that it looks more like the android's body. Once I have that, he needs some arms and legs. So I'm going to go back to that rounded rectangle tool and I'm going to click on it. And I'm going to click one time to draw what size I want my arms and legs to be. Yours don't have to be exactly the same size I'm doing mine, but I'm giving you those dimensions in case you want to make them that way. So I'm going to make his arms 0.6 inches wide and about 1.8 inches long. And the corner radius about 0.35 inches. I'm going to say OK. And I can click to make two of those, or again, I can hold down the Alt key and drag over and make an exact duplicate. Okay. And then his legs, I'm going to click again and draw his legs. And these I'm going to make about 1.2 inches. I'm going to leave the 0.6 inches for the width, but I'm going to do 1.2 inches for the height. And say OK. So now I have a leg. I'm going to go back to my selection tool and click the Alt button and drag over and make an exact duplicate. So I have my arms and my legs, and I just want to move them wherever I want them to be. So I'm going to do my placement here and place the arms, and this depends on you know, basically just where you want the placement to be. So I want them to be even, so I'm using my guides right there that are coming up. Yours will either come up as pink on your screen or green, it just depends. And then the legs, I need those to kind of overlap some. So this spacing is a little bit much here, so I'm actually going to use my arrow keys and move this up a little closer. And then I'm going to move his arms up. And again, it's up to you. You're the designer on this. You decide where you want these placed at and everything. I think I'm going to stick his legs like right underneath where his eyes are at. That's what I'm going to use as my guide to decide where I want my leg placement. So I'm going to center it with his eye on both of these, like that. And then I just want to make sure they're the same length so his legs, he doesn't have one leg longer than the other one. Once I have them placed where I want to unite them together just like we do with the antennas. So I'm going to click his body, hold down the Shift key and click his first leg and his second leg. I'm going to come back to my Pathfinder tool under Shape Modes and I'm going to choose Unite. So now that's all one piece. I have his arms over here as separate pieces. So now I have his entire body the way that I want it. Okay, and I want to group him all together now. So I'm going to click outside here and draw an imaginary rectangle around him to select the entire android like that, and hit Control G to group him together. And I want to make an exact duplicate of him to put over here on my other artboard that I'm going to use to turn him into something else. So I'm going to hold down the Alt key and I'm going to drag him over. Okay. So now I have an exact duplicate over here on my other artboard that I can now turn into whatever I choose to turn it into. And so you guys can look at some of the options that are available there on our slideshow of what you might want to turn him into. It doesn't have to be one of those options. It can be whatever you choose to turn him into. And I'll pull that back over and show it to you again real quick. So right here you can see that some people have turned him into Superman or Star Wars characters. Christmas and Thanksgiving are coming up, so if you want to do something like that, you can do an elf or Santa or reindeer, It is your choice. Make them into anything that you would like, but that's your challenge, to turn him from the Android logo into one of those things or something else that you come up with. The last thing that we're going to do before we stop out of this is we are going to add our text. So we're going to bring what we learned in our text tricks videos over here to this video, and we're going to type the word Android across his chest. So we are going to go ahead and find our type tool over here and click on it. We're going to click anywhere on the screen over here on the left, it doesn't matter where, and we're going to type in the word Android. Okay, and then we're going to hit Control A to select it, and we're going to change it to 72-point font. Okay, and then the name of the font that we're using is called, and we're going to choose the font called Android 7, and so you can actually just type that in up here, Android 7, and it should pop up in your list because this is the Android font that we're going to use. And then we're going to click our black arrow or our selection tool, and we're going to drag this over so that it is lined up on his body. We want it to be exactly the same color as our Android. So we are going to come over here and double click on our fill color that's black right now, and we are going to type in our Android color again. So that is our A4, oops, I typed it in correctly, A4C439 color, and say OK. Notice that I can't read it now because it's the same color as my Android, which is fine. We're going to learn how to make it to where we can see it. And then we need it to be just a tiny bit smaller because it needs to be completely on the Android. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and right click on it and choose Create Outlines. That will help us be able to better see it because now it'll have those little outlines around it. And we're going to drag it in because we want to make sure that it is actually on his body and not hanging off of it. So I'm going to go over one of these white squares here in the middle, and I'm going to drag it in to where it's about there. Okay, and it's just as close as possible. You don't have to have it exact. Once I have it there, I'm going to click on my Appearance tab. So over here for you guys, you'll have your different tab groupings, and you want to be on the one that says Appearance. And I'm going to show you another way to do one of those text tricks that we did. So the one that we did with our offset path, I'm going to show you the way to have it automatically outlined with the color you want it outlined with. So we're going to open up our Appearance tab, and then we're going to double click the word Contents right here. And when we do that, we're going to click where it says Fill Color and has our green color that we chose, and we're going to scroll down. And we want to choose to add a new fill. So that is going to be this icon right here. When you hover over it, it should say Add New Fill, otherwise you're on the incorrect one. And we're going to click it. You have to have selected this fill color first with your green color so that this color goes underneath it. Okay, we're going to come down to the second one, the one we just added, and we're going to change the color from green to white. Okay. If your colors aren't showing up like mine aren't right now, I can click this little library icon right here and come down to Default Swatches and choose my white color from there as well. Okay. So I've got my green, my second one is white. I'm then going to go ahead and click on this Effects, add a new effect, which is an FX right here. Come down to our path. Offset path. My little box is going to pop up. I'm going to click Preview. Notice that it's way too large. I am going to change joins to rounded this time because those letters are rounded. And for my size here, I'm going to type in anything between 0.03 to 0.08. I think last time I did mine 0.06. Yeah. I want it to be enough to where the letters are connected together like this, so that there's no space in between them, they're connected together. And once I have that, I've changed it to 0.06 and round. I'm going to click OK. I'm going to come up to Object. This is the step that most people forget to do, and then it doesn't work for them. Okay, so make sure you come up to Object and you come up here and click Expand Appearance, because that's going to put the dots around both pieces of text so you can select them. Once I do that, I need to come up here to Pathfinder tool again, and I want to choose the option that says Merge, because do you see these lines or paths that are crossing each other, these blue lines that are crossing? If I cut it out like that on the vinyl cutter, I'm going to have a big messy puzzle instead of what I want for my Android logo. So I'm going to come up here and choose the Merge tool. When I do that, all of those lines go together because it merged that together there. And then if I want to make sure that this is exactly where I want it placed on his chest, I can hold down the Shift key and select him as well. Go back to my Align tool and click Center, and that way it's going to center that text on his chest horizontally, and it will be all completely centered and lined up. Once I have done that, I am finished with that part, but I want to make sure that there are no lines crossing each other when I hit Control Y. So I'm going to hit Control Y, and when I do that, notice that there are lines crossing through here with the text. So to fix that, I'm going to click on the text again to select it. I'm going to shift click on my Android, and I'm going to use my Merge tool again under Pathfinder, like that. And notice when I do that, that now all those lines that were crossing through my text are gone. It fixed that, so we're not going to have any issues when we go to cut this out on the vinyl cutter. I'm going to hit Control Y to put it back, Control S to save it, and then you're going to go ahead and take your second copy of your Android over here on your second artboard and make it into something else for me. I can't wait to see what you come up with.